So before you throw stones at me, before you curse me out, please just hear me out. It is not that I would never agree with somebody leaving a narcissist, and it's not that I don't believe that that's the correct choice. It's the way of going about it. And if a person is in imminent danger, if they are in physical danger, if they're in an extreme case of narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, etc., then yes, sometimes even an intervention is necessary. But in the normal cases, there is a reason that my normal go-to is not just to immediately tell them to leave. Please just hear me out before you get really, really angry. There's really three reasons. One is because of the effectiveness of it. If you have ever asked a person or tried to convince a person to leave an abusive relationship, whether it's physical abuse or mental abuse, it can be very draining, frustrating. You can be very confused by the person's responses and why they continue to go back to this person. So usually that conversation is not the catalyst that makes that person leave. Of course, there's going to always be exceptions to the rule, but the effectiveness of it is not extremely high. And one of the reasons for that could be because of the psychology behind it, which is something called the boomerang effect. And that's basically where when a person is in a narcissistic, abusive relationship or emotionally abusive relationship, fill in the blank with whatever kind of psychological abuse that is applicable. If they are staying, there are chances that that person still has a high level of emotional attachment to their abuser, that they still have strong feelings towards this person, that they're in a mindset of, I want to have hope for us. I want to believe the best. Things really aren't that bad. They just get angry sometimes. I know I'm confused, and I know I'm not treated the best, but I need to do better. There is a deep sense of empathy in that person. There is a deep sense of loyalty that they want to stay true and stick it out through all the hard times. In their minds, it's hard times with this person because they want to believe the good and the best. And the boomerang effect is whenever somebody comes along and suggests that they leave that person, then that can actually inflame or heighten that sense of loyalty to their abuser. They can actually dig their heels in even deeper to say, I don't want to abandon that person right now in their time of need. They're going through a hard time and they just act out because of these hard things that they've gone through or whatever. It can potentially have a counteractive effect where instead of them opening up their minds to other possibilities of, I never thought of this as abuse. Let me hear more about this. Or, I know that you care about me and you're coming from a place of concern. So I really want to hear you out and tell me your thoughts. It usually doesn't go that way. But that person, if the boomerang effect is happening, then it will actually bounce back and they will resist the idea of leaving even more. That's the other reason that my first go-to is not always to say immediately leave. And the last reason is really because of my personal experience. And my personal experience it comes down to when I have talked with people that have been in those relationships and they've left, when I've talked to people that are still in those relationships and they're continuing to stay, and my own personal research, and then my own personal story. When I was in a destructive relationship, I had people that cared about me deeply and they were wonderful and they meant the best. They did nothing wrong. I will never fault somebody for suggesting to somebody that they care about to leave an abusive relationship. Obviously, that's never going to be a bad thing. That's never going to be wrong. So these people came to me and they suggested that I leave. And I understood where they were coming from, but I know for me in my journey, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to take that big step. Usually when a person is in that kind of relationship, there are so many layers that they have to go through to get to that point of deciding to leave, whether it's leaving temporarily to see if their abuser will really truly do a 180 and change themselves and work on things, or whether it's leaving permanently, going no contact. It depends on the situation. So I remember not being ready and resisting that suggestion. And I never felt any animosity towards those people. I know that they were coming from a place of caring, but I also did buck against it because it wasn't my time yet. I was still in this process of believing and hoping we can fix this, we can get through this. I wanted to believe the best. I wanted to have hope. I went through that process actually for some years, and thousands of dollars later, different avenues, different routes. How can we fix this? And at the end of that time, when I looked back at the beginning of that time, when I really wanted to try to do whatever I could to fix this relationship, and I saw that there had been zero change on the other person's part, zero change in our status, zero change in the health of our relationship. That's when I had my aha moment. And it was devastating for me to admit it was never going to change. And at the same time, I had to come to that point on my own. And I appreciated all the feedback and all the different counseling I got from people that love me and from professional counselors. And at the same time, I had to get to that point of this is where I draw the line. And when a person hasn't gotten to that point yet, it can kind of be like a butterfly coming out of a chrysalis. I've gotten to witness that in person, like very up close with the chrysalis and the butterfly coming out, and it's so cool. I love that. It's like watching a miracle. But you see the butterfly make its little hole, and then you see it like trying to like climb out of the hole, and it's really struggling, and it can take some time, and it can be like really kind of test your patience because you just can't wait to see the butterfly come out. And you're like waiting and you're waiting, and you just want to help. You really, really just want to like step in. Let me just help you out. Let me just make the hole a little bit bigger and kind of cheat the process, you know? But then what ends up happening is if you do that and step in whenever it's not the right time yet, and that butterfly didn't have the chance to go through all that necessary process of that struggle to get out, you know, the story, it actually is detrimental to the butterfly and they can die. Part of that struggle is part of what helps them to survive. So it can be a similar boat to a person that is going through that process, and they have to step into that power on their own. They have to know it's time. And of course, this is not in extreme cases. This is not whenever a person's life is in danger or anything like that. And every story is always going to be different, and there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. You know, I'm just really coming from a place of sharing where my experience is and also sharing what I have witnessed and seen. And one person's experience is never going to just be always the right way. I'm always open to other ways, other avenues people take to help a person escape from a narcissist, an abusive relationship, and all of that. There's going to be a slew of ways, and a lot of them will be amazing. So there's going to be that time where you really, really just want to help a person and they're not ready for it. But don't think that there's nothing you can do and be like, okay, well, great. I'm not supposed to suggest that they leave. Then what am I supposed to do? Just watch the destruction happen? And it's like, no, there are things that you can do to help that person. And one of them is being there for them. You can just be there whenever things are falling apart, whenever the abuse is really bad. You can be a shelter for them. You can be a rock for them, a haven for them, so that they don't have to go through that alone. It's difficult, it's challenging, I know. But hopefully you will get to be there then whenever they have their butterfly emerging from the chrysalis moment. And they know it's not going to change, and they step into that power. and they kind of like come up to the next level of themselves. Another thing that you can do is you can provide resources for them. So if they're not open to the idea of it being an abusive relationship, a lot of times they think, no, this isn't abuse because there's no physical harm being done, but mentally and emotionally they are being destroyed. So you can provide resources for them. Say, hey, you know, I was listening to some of the things that you're talking about, what's happening in your relationship, and it reminded me of this book that I've heard about, or this book that I've read, and would you be willing to read it? Or I can order it online and I can send it your way. I think it could really help give you some clarity on what's happening. Or you can say, I found this website, or I found this YouTube channel by this person, and they really break things down. And they were talking about some of the same exact things that you're going through. And it could just kind of be a way to take the burden off of yourself for feeling like you have to save that person. And instead, you're kind of empowering them and you're educating them so that they can be better equipped to make that very hard choice that they will need to make for themselves. I know education for me was a huge part of my aha moment, my journey. And I didn't know what was happening and I couldn't understand it and I couldn't explain it until I had read through multiple books and multiple websites and talked to multiple people that had experiences in those areas and multiple professionals and all of the things. So know that there are ways that you can be there for that person. And if you're the person that feels like they are trapped in a relationship with a narcissist, with an emotional abuser, with a gaslighter, and you don't feel like you're ready to leave yet, then my one challenge to you is the butterfly, when it's emerging from the chrysalis, it is struggling. It's not just being stagnant. It's not just staying there and waiting for things to change. It is taking action. It is doing things. If you long for a change, if you're hoping for that and waiting for that, at least I would challenge you, allow there to be a struggle with what's going on and not just accepting it. And then if you get to that point where you see that there is no change and there's no hope for change, the balance of the mentality is not just staying still and expecting change to happen, but working towards whatever you can to get into a healthy situation mentally and relationally. And if that means emerging from that chrysalis whenever you're ready, then I can't wait for that moment for you. Thank you so much for staying to the end of this video. I know this is a more personal video. I'm just hanging out in my kitchen, chatting with you. My name is Janie Lynette, and I am a professional life coach, and I help people that have been in these situations to move forward into their empowered and amazing, beautiful selves. In the spirit of struggling in order to emerge from your chrysalis and walk into the amazing new you, and one that is ready for the next stage, whatever that looks like. Let's move forward together.